all of you for coming out to this memorial. Today we honor the lives of Tom Kendall and his parents, Enoch and Ura, whose remains were laid to rest on this site 50 years ago this week. That event was covered by television and newspapers nationally and attended by some 60 residents and tourists. That event was the funeral for this ranching family, having been delayed for 65 years. 5 decades have now gone by since their interment here. Thousands of people have walked by, driven, and cycled past this monument, with the Kendalls here gone unnoticed and forgotten. Today we mark this occasion with the unveiling of a permanent headstone, a memorial to the 1910 tragedy that shocked our tiny village. The gruesome events of late July 1910 are something that one could never have imagined happening in this community. Tom Kendall was in his early 20s when he and his parents moved from Kentucky to the Fruitvale district of Oakland in 1905. A couple of years later, they arrived in Cazadero to homestead several acres known as Black Rock. The neighboring 956-acre ranch to the north was the old Ingram Ranch. It was owned by Silas Ingram, who owned the Ingram Hotel, built almost here where we stand today. Different one. Really? Silas, one could say, was the founder of what we call Cazadero today. His hotel and post office eventually sold to George Montgomery, who renamed the town of Ingram to Cazadero. Silas sold his ranch to well-known 51-year-old Massachusetts architect Henry Fletcher Starbuck and his second wife, 39-year-old Margaret, a wealthy widow who he married in 1901. The ranch house was built in 1895 by James Owens, who was the first owner. It had a kitchen, a living room, 4 bedrooms, and a pantry. It had a covered porch on all sides. The house still stands today, the ranch now called Lion's Head. The Starbuck Ranch, as it became known, had 50 head of cattle, along with chickens, hogs, and 5 horses. The Starbucks primarily resided in Oakland, yet Mrs. Starbuck would come up on occasion. It became evident that managing the ranch was a formidable task, and in March of 1909, the Starbucks leased the property to Tom Kendall for a share in the profits for the next 3 years. After 3 months, however, Margaret wanted to terminate the lease and even took Tom to court, filing several lawsuits. However, the judge ruled in favor of Tom Kendall in June of 1910. A month later, on July 31st, it was discovered that the Kendalls had mysteriously disappeared. The deputy sheriff, Arthur Trosper, the justice of the peace, Drake Trosper, Ernie Trosper, formed a posse with deputized locals, Bill Brown, Hap Gould, Newt Grider, Scotty McBain, and George Millerick. And for those of you who know a little bit about Cazadero history, those are all very familiar local names. At the Starbuck Ranch House where the Kendalls live, they found the grisly remains of ashes, bones, and blood in the house and about the property. The victims had been shot, then their bodies scattered, burned, and fed to the hogs. The Japanese ranch hand, hired by Margaret Starbuck, had been seen several days earlier boarding the train along with the Kendall's dog. Manjiro Yamaguchi was never seen again in Cazadero. While the investigation nice breeze, huh? While the investigation moved forward into Margaret Starbuck's motive and possible role in the murders, the Kendall's remains were stored in mason jars and kept in the most official building in town, the local post office, located at that time inside the general store. Jane is holding one of the mason jars. The Starbucks sold the ranch in September of that year to Joseph Silva, a livery stable owner from San Francisco. Margaret and Henry eventually divorced in 1914. In 1962, store owner Grant King discovered the mason jars. However, local officials advised him to continue to store them. But in 1975, store owner Rex Nance rediscovered the jars. Rex was a reserve deputy sheriff and contacted the coroner, who advised that the ashes could be given a final home. Rex organized a funeral procession with a hay wagon drawn by a mule carrying 2 urns made by local potter Hugh Hope. Many of us will recognize that name. Charles Hope is his father. He's 87 years old and he lives in Occidental to this day. Folks from all over Cazadero came, and some dressed in period attire. A musician in top hat and tails strummed his guitar and sang. Gary Rogers led the mourners in the Lord's Prayer. The urns were placed in a concrete vault behind the Kendall's friend and neighboring rancher, Drake Trosper's monument, and eventually forgotten. Earlier this year, this monument was tagged with political graffiti, and I was asked if I could clean it off. In that process, I stumbled upon a half-buried concrete vault cover and recalled the story of the 1975 event. Quick calculation showed that exactly 50 years had passed without a marker to memorialize these early homesteaders from Kentucky. Today, with the generous support of donations from the Cazadero Community Club, the Cazadero General Store, the Russian River Historical Society, I am honored to unveil the Kendall Memorial Stone, lest they never be forgotten.